Colorado Avalanche are stacking up that wood in the blue paint. But what does it mean for your fantasy hockey squad? That will be the focus of the latest edition of your daily source for fantasy hockey news, the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, coming in hot with all of the NHL news that you need to build a winner. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Things in the fantasy hockey and NHL world are starting to come to a boil, and so you tapped right back in to what you need to know to affect this winning squad you're building. The Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, Tuesday edition, ready to roll with all of the news and angles that are impacting your squad. Shout out to the everydayers. Much love, salute. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. Monday through Friday, you can find us wherever you find your favorite content. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Start the seasons big with a big return on FanDuel, where new customers that place a $5 bet and hit get $150 back in bonus bets. Right now at FanDuel.com. Get over there and get started today. Mr. Roden, I wanted to wait for this piece of news, but I appreciate that you want to get to it. A lot of people are talking about it, and I can't disagree with you there. This is interesting what's going on in Colorado's blue paint. All of a sudden, in the span of a couple of weeks, a whole different look. Let's talk about it. We're also going to talk about the impacts of Jacob Trouba, the Shesterkin trade. The Rangers are in the news for a reason, and it has fantasy fallout. Of course, a big, juicy 11-game betting board for Tuesday night's action. We're bringing the fire picks. However, over to you. What are you seeing here? I think we actually might disagree on this one, but over to you for your take.
Yeah, I mean, the Colorado Avalanche have completely pulled the plug on their starting tandem of this season. In just over a week, they have traded both their goaltenders they started the season with, Houston and Noonan, to the Nashville Predators, and now Alexander Georgiev to the San Jose Sharks. And just to break down the full trade, the Colorado Avalanche send Alexander Georgiev, Nikolai Kovalenko, a 2025 fifth round and a 2026 second round pick in exchange for goaltender Mackenzie Blackwood, Giovanni Smith, and a 2027 fifth round pick from the San Jose Sharks. That is the full trade. Once again, the Colorado Avalanche, in the span of just over a week, have traded both their goaltenders. They're shaking up the blue paint. And this, to me, was a move from the front office of the Avalanche out of sheer horror from what they've seen so far this season from Georgiev and Noonan. I mean, an .874 save percentage with a goal saved above average of minus 11.4 is absolutely unacceptable from a supposed number one goaltender in Georgiev. He has gotten worse since arriving in Colorado 3 years ago. The save percentage going down, the goals against average going up. On the other hand, of this trade, the Avalanche acquire Mackenzie Blackwood, who's played probably his best hockey in the last 5 years. Goals saved above expected of 4.6, a 909 save percentage. So he's been pretty solid so far, all things considered, of how the roster is in San Jose. So I think both GMs in this trade walk away with a smile on their face and happy. Overall, when it comes fantasy-wise, I sent a tweet out right when this news broke, stating Blackwood's roster percentage across hockey fantasy platforms. He was rostered at 5 to 16% on those fantasy platforms. Currently, we have seen a huge uptick in that percentage, up to 39% and climbing as we talk about it. Georgiev, he's down 5% in the last week, 68% altogether on Yahoo. So I think we're seeing, a downshift in Georgiev's value and an uptick in Mackenzie Blackwood's value already.
Most definitely. I thought you were going to come on here and say you really like this trade for the San Jose Sharks, and I do want your overall take on that after I spit you a little bit of fact right here, because my take is on this. Clearly, this is a bold move from the Colorado Avalanche, and I don't mean because of the players involved, just because of the nature of what this is. Not many times in the NHL span that I've been covering the league, Steel, can I remember a team, and yeah, it makes sense, of course. They have allowed the third most goals against in the NHL at 103. Only the Sharks and Penguins have allowed more goals against. So that shows you right there that that duo was not getting it done. Oddly enough, another piece of the duo not getting it done is coming back the other way. But I think I'm with you here with Mackenzie Blackwood. My second point was, if Alexander Georgiev was struggling with Josh Manson, Taze, and Cale Makar in front of him, I'm a little bit concerned about what this might mean for his numbers with the likes of, the back Jan Ruta, Cody Ceci, Henry Thrun, Mario Ferraro. I know is a banger league beauty to a certain extent, and that top pairing of Wallman and Liljegren I actually kind of like. Georgiev, he's cooked. Blackwood and Wedgwood are going to get a real good chance here on much better teams than Nashville and San Jose. That makes it intriguing. Scotty Wedgwood is 2-1 in his 3 starts with the Colorado Avalanche, and he just got a shutout on Sunday night. So this is a very, very intriguing fantasy situation, Steele, that unfolds over the next couple of weeks for Colorado, and of course a little bit for San Jose. Back over to you, though, because I still do think the Colorado Avalanche here I would give them the slight edge. Do they pay a little bit more of a price? I think they do. Kovalenko, and I know some draft picks are involved, but I think Colorado probably made out as the winners in this trade, in my opinion, the best player involved.
Honestly, I think it's pretty dead even in this situation. Like I said, I think both front offices and GMs walk away pretty happy with this deal. I mean, with everything that's going on, the rebuild in San Jose, Mike Greer's got to be pretty happy with the draft picks he gets back, Kovalenko. And then again, we know that Georgiev's been very disappointing over the last 2 seasons. Again, you've got Vanacek, you've got Askarov, you bring in Georgiev into the mix as well. So you're kind of running this rotation of 3 backup goaltenders, even a third string goaltender in this case. So all things considered is a pretty good situation. Again, we know Georgiev can play pretty good. It's just getting him a different scene, different scenario from what he's seen in Colorado. And Mackenzie Blackwood's played very solid so far, again, in that situation that Georgiev is going into. So I think they both walked away very happy. Fantasy wise, I mean, you've already pulled the trigger on Mackenzie Blackwood in both the casual and competitive league. So you were on that as soon as that news broke down. So you were, you must be feeling pretty happy with acquiring Mackenzie Blackwood in both the leagues.
And let's be clear, Scotty Wedgwood and Mackenzie Blackwood, for the most part, have been backup goalies for their whole career as well. So this isn't exactly a foolproof plan going on here in Colorado, but I like what I'm seeing from Scott Wedgwood already. So let's see if Mackenzie Blackwood can follow suit. I'm feeling okay about the options. I've just had, you and I are going to talk about our teams in more depth tomorrow on tomorrow's episode. I've just had a really tough ride with my goaltenders, and if I want to try and salvage anything, Steele, I'm going to have to take some shots on these goaltenders. They might get filled in. They might get some shutouts. At this point, I got to plug and play, or else I'm going to be absolutely cooked. So I'm feeling okay. I got to get my eyes peeled on this situation because it's intriguing. Does this reinvigorate Kovalenko, a player that obviously is buried in the forward group in Colorado in terms of minutes? This was a bit of a sneaky pick coming into the start of the year, deeper, keeper dynasty leagues, but there's some offensive flair there. Lots of that in San Jose's lineup. So let's see what he can do, I think is what I'm at with this whole situation. Wait and see. But fantasy implications abound, much like what's going on with the New York Rangers and the Anaheim Ducks. I want to talk about both of them, and then we'll get to big time bets.
Yeah, big time bets at the end of the episode. New York Rangers, lots of news over the weekend. We were going to talk about our fantasy hockey listener leagues, both the casual and competitive, on today's episode. We're going to break that down on tomorrow's episode because of all this trade and crazy hectic weekend from the New York Rangers. We're going to break that all down and big time bets later in this episode.
Yes, sir. Right after we talk about our friends at Prize Picks. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. And if you love sports just like Steele and I, you're going to love Prize Picks, the best place to turn your knowledge into real money. Whether it's hockey, football, or any of your other favorite sports, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in on the action. You can win up to 200 times your money on Prize Picks. Get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. No need to win. The 50 is yours guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers fun weekly promotions like Taco Tuesday. Steele, this is a new one for us. You know how I feel about tacos, where players select projections and are discounted up to 25% off. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get 50% instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, 50 instantly at Prize Picks. Run your game.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Make sure you continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. Make sure you share with your friends and family out there. We really do appreciate all that love and support. Make sure, again, you're tuning in to tomorrow's episode. Flip and I are going to break down our casual and competitive league, break down exactly what's been going on with our teams and how we are faring in the last month since we last talked about our teams in our listener league. So we're getting after it again. Flip, big ads with the Mackenzie Blackwood trade to the Colorado Avalanche over to the New York Rangers. They make a trade for themselves. They also have a huge signing. The New York Rangers traded Jacob Trouba to the Anaheim Ducks. Definitely a messy situation. We've seen the interview as well from Jacob Trouba and how all things went down from his perspective. But the trade, regardless, went down. Rangers send Jacob Trouba to the Anaheim Ducks for in exchange for I can't pronounce this name either.
Urho Vakanainen.
Urho Vakanainen. Thank you. That's why I got you, Flip, always keeping me down with these names out here. And a 2025 4th-round draft pick. I don't know what's going on in the background. If you can hear that, Flip, the alarm's going off. The dogs are barking.
It's hot take. Crazy. You're setting alarms off.
Yeah, it's getting crazy on my side of things over here. But yeah, big trade for the New York Rangers. They're getting after it. And they clear the cap space of $8 million from Jacob Trouba. So, I mean, I think all things considered, looking at things in hindsight and from Jacob Trouba's perspective, I mean, it was just a messy situation overall handled by this Rangers organization.
And actually, I think Chris Drury made out okay in this situation. Vakanainen is a former first-round draft pick. He hasn't really panned out to that kind of caliber. But to get something out of nothing here, look, and I'm not trying to blame what ails the New York Rangers on Jacob Trouba. Was he a part of it? Has he been disappointing this season? Of course. But I think all of this off-ice issues has clearly distracted a player that for almost his entire career still has been a very valuable fantasy defenseman. If we want to separate this conversation very quickly, this is a guy who's brought almost 200 hits and 200 block shots in like 4 or 5 out of the last 6 seasons. So last year, still bringing it, even though point production has declined, 39 points down to 32 seasons ago, 22 last season, and only 6 assists this season. Frustrating for sure, because I would have been fine taking Jacob Trouba back at draft season, maybe the 8th, 9th, 10th rounds as a guy who really brings peripherals and is on a really good team. I'll leave it at this before I turn it back over to you, because I didn't know this until this afternoon when we were doing research ahead of today's episode. The Rangers actually almost had Cam Fowler in this deal. The Anaheim Ducks wanted to move Cam Fowler as the piece. Cam Fowler wants out of Anaheim. He wants to play for a winner. Chris Drury did not want his 6.5, so they brought in Vakanainen. However, this is very intriguing to me, Steele, because, and this is where I think Jacob Trouba is going to flourish, Cam Fowler is that veteran leader in Anaheim. They have a lot of good young D-men. Luno, Zellweger, Mitnyakov. This is going to be really huge for, I think, the development of those players. I think a rejuvenated Trouba in a new, fresh situation is actually going to still bring a ton of fantasy value and might actually even be a buy low target that you could consider for cheaps.
Yeah, I mean, currently rostered at 90% on ESPN, 37% on Yahoo. So definitely a big gap in between his value from those different platforms right there. Like you said, the Rangers cleared. They didn't want to bring on that $6.5 million from Fowler. They already cleared the $8 million of Trouba. They're looking for the cap space, so they retained $0 in this deal. They now have $6.2 million in cap space. For Jacob Trouba's value, though, again, to me, it really just remains the same. I mean, he's not a guy who produces offensively. He's going to get his blocks, his penalty minutes, his hits. He's going to, the peripheral categories is where he thrives and that's where he makes his money, his bread and butter in the fantasy hockey realm. So for me, I mean, as of right now, he's projected to be on the 3rd D pairing with Brian Dumoulin. Things could be shaked up. He could move up and down, but as a defenseman, you're getting put out there in this situation. Jacob Trouba is not going to get any power play time, maybe penalty kill time on the 2nd unit, but regardless, he's going to still fill out those peripheral categories. The Anaheim Ducks complete their set of the Bash brothers and pairing him up with Ratko Gudas. So that's going to be fun for Anaheim fans out there who are looking for, the big bad guys on the blue
It's a
line.
tough blue line to play against, Steele. I don't exactly hate it.
It's going to be a tough blue line to play against. Yeah, for me, this is just a crazy situation. We're seeing organizations like the Rangers now. We've heard rumors and stories of the past with the Vegas Golden Knights on how they deal with players in these type of situations. It's clearly all business from the management side of things. And again, Jacob Trouba's interview with how everything went down, he's pretty much just offered, look, you're getting traded. If you don't waive, we're going to put you on waive. You're going to have to clear waivers anyway, and they're going to pick you up. So you might as well just say yes to this deal. And again, kind of a sticky situation to be in from Jacob Trouba.
For me, I'm a little bit more intrigued with what this can mean for a bump in his fantasy value, although your prediction is probably going to hold true, especially if he's buried on that third pairing. I think he might actually move up, but we'll see what happens. It leads right into the signing of an 8-year, $92 million contract, 11.5 AAV, the richest in NHL history for coming into this season. I think you were riding with Hellebuyck as the number one fantasy goaltender. I believe I was going with Shesterkin. Clearly, to start the season, it has been Hellebuck's title. Shesterkin is just as good and just as important in terms of affecting his team's ability to win games. The fantasy argument, you're for sure going to win with Hellebuyck this season, of course. However, before this last stretch of 9 games, Steele, in which the Rangers have gone 2-7, Shesterkin was pretty much lights out. On November 19th, he was 12-4-1, and he has a career 2.47 goals against and a .920 save percentage. He's been a beast. I think with this bit of business and the Trouba business now settled, you might actually see some of the calmness return to what Peter Laviolette usually operates under. What's your take on this? Because obviously, fantasy-wise, over the last few weeks, Shesterkin might have been hurting you, but I think the good times are about to return for the New York Rangers, especially if they use this money that they just kind of freed up and make a little bit of an ad here.
Yeah, again, I think that's exactly why they did that. Gives them some flexibility come the trade deadline. They can still make some trades or, again, look to acquire, another defenseman on that blue line to kind of fill that gap of Jacob Trouba's departure. Rangers, they signed Igor Shesterkin to a crazy contract. 8 years, $92 million deal starting 2025. He'll be the highest paid goaltender. He'll also be the 7th highest paid player. So it's absolutely massive. And like you said, besides the last 5 to 9 games, which has just been an absolute gong show. Thank you. An absolute gong show from the Rangers and Shesterkin perspective. I mean, over the next 8 years, Shesterkin is going to be a top 3 goaltender, both fantasy hockey wise and in the National Hockey League. I mean, I'm still going to be, supporting and standing behind Connor Hellebuyck as the number 1 guy until I'm proven otherwise. But regardless, Shesterkin's going to be a top 3. And he could easily become a number 1 on how good he plays for the New York Rangers. Always going to be considered top 3 no matter what. He's just that good, especially going down this 8-year long-term contract.
Couldn't agree with you more. We'll keep our eyes peeled on what the New York Rangers continue to do, because I really can't say more on this show that I don't think Chris Drury is done. The nasty business is out of the way, and the big fish on your roster is now out of the way in terms of Shesterkin. So Trouba, that was the first Band-Aid. Shesterkin, that was the next move. And now I think, it's almost like a little bit of everything here. The next one is you bolster a team that is clearly good enough to at least hang around in the East. A little bit like Carolina, they just not been able to get out of there and really get to the cup. But hey, when you got pieces up front cooking like Breadman, Will Cooley chipping in, obviously Zibanejad underperforming, but you know what I'm getting at here, Steele. They're good enough, and I think they're not done yet, which means more fantasy impact to be had.
Yeah, I also wonder what this might mean for some of the guys on the blue line of the New York Rangers with Jacob Trouba gone now. Keandre Miller, Zach Jones, Ryan Lindgren, some of Braden Schneider, some of those guys maybe getting some opportunity quarterbacking that second power play unit, getting a lot more ice time. So a lot of things moving pieces for the New York Rangers. $6.2 million in cap space. We'll have to continue to keep our eyes on what they might end up doing in the future. When we come back after the break, big time bets, lots of bets to get after on Tuesday. this episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. That's exactly where you can place those bets. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need in one place to place those live bets on the NFL. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place those bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Like I said, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Continue to smash the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. Flip and I appreciate all that love and support you show us. Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning is when you can find our episodes. Flip, over to you, my friend.
Okay.
Big time bets Tuesday night. Where are you looking at first?
I think you've heard this a lot from me and so have our listeners over the last couple of weeks, but I think it's just very indicative of this time of the season, which ahead of the holidays is always tricky. We just talked about it at length. Teams right now are really getting a good feel for their roster, and that means shakeups, that means rumors, and obviously the holiday break, it all leads into a tough betting schedule. And I know we've still been picking our spots, and I'm not trying to cop out. I just, once again, even with 11 games, there was nothing that immediately jumped off the page. However, after a little bit of research and some digging, I have a over-under. I have 2 money line bets, and you're really going to like my lock of the night, but let me spit out my first one. The number has gone over the total in 7 of the last 9 between the Tampa Bay Lightning. I was going to say Tampa Bay Oilers. Tampa Bay Lightning and Edmonton Oilers. 4 of Edmonton's last 5 games at home against Tampa have gone over the number, and 4 of Tampa's last 6 games overall have gone over the number. I think you know where I'm going with this one. Both teams are feeling it offensively. I see this one a long night for goal horn steal in Edmonton. Oilers starting to look good, by the way. Give me the over, Tampa Bay into Edmonton tonight.
I like that pick a lot. I was definitely looking at the over 6.5 in this game as well. I definitely think it could be a barn burner. Offense is feeling it as of late for both squads. I actually ended up going with 3 money line picks, and that's where I started with. Lightning on the money line at plus 126 against these Oilers. They're 7-3-0 in their last 10 matchups against Edmonton. They play very great away on the road as well. They've started well on this 5-game road trip. 4-2 win over the Vancouver Canucks. Going into Edmonton, they've got a lot of rest over the last week as well, and they play strong in Edmonton. And like you said, offensively, they can be a juggernaut. Lightning on the money line for my first pick, plus 126.
I like that. And you know what? You're going to get a good odd because of it's a coin flip game, in my opinion. So when I say I like that you're taking the value here. I think last week you said a few of these picks that I made. Actually, it was yesterday that you would stay away from. I think this is one of those situations where I'm happy to kind of play the player prop or total angle because nothing jumped off the page. You might be saying the same thing for me here. Look, the Columbus Blue Jackets are a pretty good offensive team. And right now they're getting goals. The Flyers also, as much as they have nights where they look great, they have nights where they don't. The goaltending has really been letting them down, and that's kind of been a theme this season. They've had some injuries. Samuel Erson's been out. They have dropped 3 straight games and have allowed 15 goals over that span while not looking good in their own end. They also, in the last 20 in Cannon country, only 5 wins out of their last 20 games. They struggle against the Columbus Blue Jackets. And my last angle, a very big, neat and tidy 4-1 W for the Columbus Blue Jackets over a good Winnipeg Jets team last time out is going to have the confidence flowing through this young team. So hit me with the Columbus Blue Jackets on the money line as my second pick.
There we go. We got another side bet action here going into Tuesday. It's been a while.
I had a feeling you were going to disagree with me on that one.
Look, I'm going Flyers on the money line for the juice here, plus 105 against the Blue Jackets. They have gone. It's been a 50-50 split in their last 10 between the Flyers and Blue Jackets. So they have some really close games. It's gone back and forth. Columbus has been pretty good, like a big win over the Winnipeg Jets the other day. Regardless, besides those last 3 losses, even with those 3 losses for the Flyers, I actually think they've been playing pretty good hockey. Tough one against Utah with Morgan Frost, mental mistake for, kind of just skimming right over the puck.
That was a bad one.
bad one from Morgan Frost. A tough one against Florida, 7-5 loss to them. But I actually think they played some pretty good hockey in that stretch, even with the 15 goals allowed. So I'm taking the juice here. Flyers on the money line plus 105, parlaying that with the Lightning money line plus 126. Lock of the night, though, Maple Leafs on the money line plus 115 against the New Jersey Devils. 7 wins in their last 10. They've already beat them 4-2 early on in this season. They play really good in New Jersey against New Jersey, from the stats I just listed off. So I'm taking all road teams actually on Tuesday.
Bold.
Maple Leafs, Flyers, Lightning, all money line, all plus odds there. Parlaying those together. Maple Leafs is the lock of the night, though.
I'm surprised you're not adding another road team to this one, Steele. My lock of the night, your boys, the Minnesota Wild on the road into Utah. Minnie's 5-1 in their last 6. The flash in the pan that some thought the start of the season is not. Philip Gustafsson's hot start has continued well into December. And I know sometimes, Steele, I know he's had a few blips on the radar, but for the most part this season, he's been sensational. He is in the conversation for a Vezina, and that's saying something considering some of the performances we've seen from Hellebuck and others. The Wild are the best road team in the NHL this season. Most road points of any team, 11-2-3, and in their last 17 against this Arizona, Utah, Yeti Mammoth situation, 13-4 in their last 17 against Utah. This one almost is too good to be true. I know Utah's been kind of feeling it a little bit, but I'm going to ride with, in my opinion, the much better team and the much hotter hand in the cage. Even though that young kid, I don't know, Jackson something, playing pretty good for the Utah Yeti in his 2 starts. I'm going to Jackson Stauber.
Yeah.
There you go. So anyway, mini money line, lock that in.
That's getting added into the parlay. Yeah. We're going 4 road teams, 4-leg parlay here. All road teams, all plus money as well. We're feeling it going into Tuesday. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Once again, make sure you go check out the Locked On NHL podcast. The link is in the description below, so you don't have to go searching for it. Make sure you're staying tuned in for tomorrow's episode. Again, we're going to break down our casual and listener league teams, break down exactly what's gone on and transpired over the last time we've talked about them in the last 4 weeks. From both Flip and I, we wish you good luck with your bets tonight, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.